I got to get another tweet with you while we're here.
You're good.
Advice to my younger self: document your life more. Otherwise, you'll forget the details, and the details are what make it worth remembering. It's powerful. I always tell my friends, we gotta take more pictures, more videos, whatever the amount that you take, it's not enough. Like, always take more. Not because you want to show anybody, but just because when I have those from the years past, I'm always so grateful I do. So what role has that played in your life, and how have you done that?
Well, I was notorious for not documenting anything for most of my life. And I think I have a different tweet that says the biggest regret I have is not documenting the failures, is like not documenting the low points. Because everyone wants to document the success story. But the only way you have a success story is if you show where you came from. And where you came from is the shitty part. And so like I did 30 something launches of gyms. I only made one recording. And it's like 2 minutes.
Damn.
And that one recording made me like $10 million because I ran it as an ad.
Wow.
Imagine if I had 30 other ones. But it was me in some random gym being like, look at this random gym I'm in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, isn't this weird? I was like, I just sold 200 people into this thing. Look at the stack of contracts. And I was actually not making it as an ad. I was sending it to a group that I had just joined to try and show that I was cool. They were all these internet people. And I was like, I do cool stuff too. I was like, I do stuff. Look at those contracts. It was me flexing to a group. It wasn't even an ad. And then I ran it as an ad and then it murdered. Like people in the gym world were like, I remember that ad, right? Because it was so crazy, because it was real. And so I think that the biggest mistake that I made from a marketing perspective, maybe a life perspective, biggest is strong. One of the mistakes I made is that I didn't document the low points. And so like I have a screenshot in my first book that's when I had $1,000 in my bank account. And for the audience who's listening, the $1,000 in my bank account for me, I had 6 locations before that. So going from 6 gyms to $1,000 in a matter of like 90 days was very hard for me. But it was hard enough that I do remember screenshotting it and being like, fucking remember this. Like, don't make this mistake again. And it was a little bit of like, at the time, like self-punishment of being like, you will not forget this. But as I've gained a little bit more grace to my younger self, I have those screenshots. And I've used that one screenshot of $1,000 in my bank account, probably more than any screenshot I've had from my past. And I took one picture of me sleeping on the floor at the gym. One, and I just sent it to my dad being like, first night here, And I'm so grateful that I took the picture, because if I hadn't, I would, and I have so many other crazy things that happened, but I have no documentation of it. And so it's easy to say, hey, document. But the thing is that documenting is a local cost for a global benefit. Mm-hmm. It costs you now, but it benefits you long-term, which is why most people don't do it. And so what I've tried to do with how we've oriented our life is that I give myself local benefit and global benefit. Mm-hmm. So I get fast feedback loops for documenting what we do now. And so we document everything, but I also get really fast feedback because I post it. Now, the problem is if you're not posting things, then you have no feedback cycle for remembering them, especially if they're tough. Mm. And so I think that one of the genius concepts of capture, don't create, et cetera, is that it actually gives you a feedback loop on something that otherwise has no benefit. Because in the moment you remember it, it just happened. In some ways you're trying to forget it, right? But like when you think about the human experience, when I think about my 85-year-old self, like what makes the human experience in its entirety, the human experience, is the highs and the lows. Mm-hmm. And so like we were talking about frames of mind for like getting through hard things earlier, but I'll give you another one, which is there was a guy, friend of a friend, successful entrepreneur, and he got really bad cancer, like super bad, really, really fast. Right. And I think he lost his like trachea and some other stuff. And like, they thought he was going to die. He ended up making it. And he was telling my friend, he was like, man, so grateful. And it was like you'd think it was like the whole, I see life a different way now. It wasn't that. It was while he was going through it. And his reasoning was, how cool is it that I get to live this part of the human experience? He's like, so many people don't get to live this. Like I get to know what it's like to have cancer. Like so many people live their whole lives and then die not knowing what cancer was like. I get to know that. And I just thought about that as like a very interesting frame. It's like whether it's bankruptcy, going to jail, Like even the depths of human suffering, and some people who are still going through that trauma, I'm not saying that, like, I'm not justifying it. It's just a frame on like being human is the rainy and the sunny days. Like you can't skip weather. And so I think like embracing the totality of the experience can give you gratitude for what feels locally like a low point. But most of the defining moments in our life, broken leg, then he doesn't have to go to war, right? When you expand the time horizon, those are the things that create us. And so, again, I mean, I talk to my 85-year-old self a lot, which sounds really weird. But whenever I'm like complaining about something, one of the common things he'll ask me back is like, well, who do you want to be? And I'll be like, well, I want to be like this. And he's like, do you think that person would not go through hard times? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, it sounds like you're wishing for the outcome, but not willing to pay the price. He's like, are you willing to pay the price? And I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, well, this is what paying the price feels like. Embrace it. Because these will be the stories you tell. And so I think that's given me the ability to weather rainy days, sunny days. Because like there are a lot of those days in the entrepreneurial journey because that Rocky cutscene is 5 years and not 30 seconds. And so I think you need as many of those tools as you can possibly put together in your tool belt to just keep going.
So beautifully said. I want to highlight too the part about sleeping in the basement and that sleeping in the gym and taking a picture of it. You post it on social media that day and it gets 0 likes. You post it on social media today and it gets 1 million. And I think there's something interesting to that is like the more you build the story, the more the low points actually mean. And the greater the, yeah, you have something.
I'll give you something that you probably didn't expect from me on this one. It's actually, I think it's a smiley face. So if you post it when you're going through it, people will respond saying, keep chasing your dreams, keep at it, etc. And then when you start succeeding, all of a sudden they won't do that. And then later they'll be like, it's cool that you came from that. But like when you're on the come up, and I remember I wrote this essay and I've actually tried to find it. And it was because I liked creative writing. I had a creative writing scholarship back in the, like I didn't actually take that scholarship, went to it. But anyways, point is I've liked writing for a long time. And I wrote this essay to myself because I'm a weirdo. I said, everyone believes in the American dream until it comes true. And so that was like the heading. And it was this weird observation that I had because like everyone was rooting for me when I was sleeping on the floor. So like in my head, I had back home everybody that I was running away from. But everyone in the local, like the people at my gym and stuff, they were like rooting for me. You know what I mean? They're like, good for you, chasing your dreams. Like, you know, you're sleeping at the gym. Like, you're going to get it. You're going to make it, man. Right? But like 9 months later, when I had like a team and I had a manager and like I wasn't at the gym every hour of every day, I was working from home sometimes because I got more done because it wouldn't, you know, disrupt me. And I would show up to the gym or I'd show up to a second location and they'd be like, oh, big man, like can't be too bothered by us. Like, don't forget us little people, right? You know, all that stuff. And I remember being like, when did I go from the underdog to the man? As in like working for the man, which is a saying that Gen Z probably doesn't even know. But I think that there's a quote that I think Chris Williamson said that I relay, and I think he was quoting somebody. I don't remember what it was. But anyways, he said, people root for you on your way up because you remind them of their dreams. And they try to tear you down once you're there because you remind them that they gave up on them. Something. And I've lived that. And it's weird because I think there's these cycles as you kind of gain an influence. It's kind of like the crab story, like in the beginning, like all the crabs try and pull the other crabs back into the bucket. So I think like you start succeeding and people are like, good for you. That gives them hope. And then you start passing them. And it's like, everyone wants you to do well, just not better than them.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you start passing them by the objective measure, whatever you want to call it. And then they start cutting at you. Right. Well, he cut corners. He's not ethical. He's, you know, they start making things up, whatever. Right. But then what happens is people who are not from your hometown start recognizing for who you are now. And they didn't see the path. They didn't see you suck in the beginning. They just see who you are now. And they're like, wow, this guy's great. He provides so much value or whatever it is, right? And I think there's a saying that Jesus wasn't the Messiah in his hometown, right? Like it's counterintuitive, but you'd think that the place that someone was from is the place that would root for him. But it was the last place that accepted him as Lord in the story, right? And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And so it's also why I'm a big advocate of leaving. Like if you want to become a different person, then change your environment, because the environment you have is reinforcing the person you used to be.
It's so crazy. 6 months ago, I know you got to go soon, but 6 months ago, I moved to Austin and haven't had more growth personally and professionally in my own life because I moved to a different place. And then I go home and I notice the patterns again that I was once living with. So that's how life goes.